Welcome to the True Freedom Podcast, a new podcast for you. If you're searching, longing, if you know there's something more you need in life. I'm your host, Richard Stokes, and our guide for this podcast is Bodhi, Aldridge, coach, author, teacher, and a great friend of mine. Each week, we'll jointly explore a topic or a theme that we think is likely to matter to you. I'll put some questions to Bodhi and he'll share his profound wisdom and experience around it. The idea is that you can take that wisdom and see how it feels to you. Sit with it, ponder it, live with it a little, and then do something with it. This is our invitation to you. And our offer is to provide a map to this territory and some tools for how to navigate this thing called life. And we really invite you to come and play. We want to hear from you, your thoughts and questions, and we'll talk about how you can get involved in the podcast itself. One early ask of you, as we always do in the podcast, is please go and rate and review the podcast if you like it over on Apple Podcasts. This is especially important for new podcasts to give them that exposure so more and more people can come and hear this great wisdom. So to this week, and the topic that Bodhi and I have decided to jump into is something very personal to both of us, actually, and that's the area of parenting and how to be the dad that you really want to be, how to be the parent that your heart yearns for you to be. And I say this is personal for me, especially because I've become a dad again for the second time 2.5 months ago, little baby Rafa. And I also have a 3-year-old Noah. So I'm really right in the target audience for this particular one myself. So I was really keen that we get into the subject. So we're going to be talking about these sort of areas. We're talking about, obviously, freedom and parenting. How can they actually sit together? You might think they're actually oxymorons. So we'll unpack that a little bit. We're also going to be talking about commitment, because we know becoming a parent is probably the greatest commitment we can ever make. And how does that sit with us and our hero's journey and our energies? And a subject we talked about in our first episode, kind of summary episode. If you haven't caught that, highly recommend you jump into that one. We talk about flow, and that the key to freedom is finding flow, and the opposite of flow being resistance. And again, I know personally that when I'm in my flow in parenting, I just enjoy it so much more than when I'm in an area of resistance. So I want to understand that. Why am I not always in it, and how can I get more flow? So that's something I'll be asking Bodhi for sure. And also things like, energy. Energy is a topic that comes up a lot in this conversation with Bodhi. And what is it about the energy of children, of kids, that we need to tune into as adults to help with our parenting? So those are some of the areas we might touch on. And now time to bring Bodhi in. Bodhi, how are you doing today?
I'm well. I remember this topic came up in our recent conversation about your trip away with your 2 little ones. So excited to explore it and get some real life examples of this territory.
Yeah, and I know, from your own personal context, this is somewhere you're something of an expert, having, let me get this right, 4 kids and 10 grandchildren now. Is that right?
Yes, correct. I've got a bit of experience.
So beautiful big family. And as I say, a lot of that context important for you in terms of the work that you've done on yourself over the many, many years, and the work that you're doing with lots of parents, both dads and mums, actually, as we go in to the podcast today. So parenting and freedom, how can they exist together? Isn't this just a great big oxymoron? How can they possibly be bedfellows? Let's start there.
Yeah, fantastic. It reminds me that as you embrace, again, we talk a lot about the hero's journey, the journey for the masculine, and as you mentioned, obviously the feminine as well. The heroine journey is slightly different. So what we're going to meet on the hero's journey is paradox. Yeah, and that's where things like commitment and freedom, discipline and freedom, we start to go, hang on a tick. And ultimately we're going to meet the mystery, which is the big journey. And so it is a little bit of a paradox on, particularly you mentioned the word commitment. The key thing that I want listeners to understand is that fundamentally, one of the most freeing and empowering things around parenting is to realize that we parent from the inside out.
Mm.
And what that means is that, again, the way we meet our external world, whether it's our children, our marriage, our business, is informed by what's going on for us internally. So 90 to 95% of your operating system, your thinking, feeling, and intuition is your subconscious mind.
Mm.
And so the power of the inside out is that when you meet parenting, the first thing is to really notice what's going on for you internally. And the journey of parenting, particularly for fathers, is that without that awareness, it can become a little bit tricky. Because if you think about parenting is like any other relationship. We're having a relationship with another being.
Yeah.
And without awareness, often what happens in relationship is we're often projecting our stuff onto the other. And if we look at that through the lens of parenting, often what's going on is we've got stuff going on the inside through our beliefs, through our life experience, yet we're projecting it in our words, in our behavior, in our emotions. And so one of the first shifts is to realize, it's not about the child. It's about you first. How am I showing up? What's my relationship like with myself? Because that's such a big shift. Even though all of this is common sense, none of it's rocket science. When you start to take responsibility in its truest sense, responsibility, the ability to respond and start to notice, how am I showing up? How did I show up in that interaction with my child? Does that make sense, Rick?
It makes complete sense. The sense that we're projecting ourselves onto our kids, and what comes up for me a lot about is sort of the labels, the narrative that we create. I have a 3-year-old, and when he was 2, people started to say, "Oh, is it terrible twos?" And I was like, no, he's not. There's nothing terrible about him. But if you start to label your child as that, guess what's going to show up? I imagine someone you thought, it's so difficult, so tough, so much resistance to me. And it's really, it's coming from me and my choice in that to how I label the behaviors of this tiny little creature who's looking to me. Right, I'm one of there are 2 fundamental teachers in this little boy's life. It's his mother and his father right now. That makes complete sense that it comes from here. And I suppose what you were just starting to get into this responsibility and the ability to respond. So a lot of parenting, especially for me right now, given the age of my boys, is in the moment, and a moment of I'm not going to say it's not about crisis, but it's there, in a moment of high emotion, let's say. So I'd love to just delve into that again, very, very sort of personal to me right now, but hopefully useful for listeners, whatever age your kids or your future children, of course. So when you're in the moment and there's that emotion, how do we move from reacting to responding? I'd love to get into that.
Yeah, fantastic. And that's the fundamental shift. So most of us, particularly when we're tired, when we're busy, we can get into the place of reaction. And reaction is when something in you has been triggered.
Right.
And we'll talk more about triggers. Most of your listeners would understand the concept of triggers. Responding, remember, responsibility is the ability to respond. And the key with the ability to respond is to know you always have choice. In this moment, I get to choose how I respond. And the fundamental choice you have in each moment is, am I coming from love or fear? Am I coming from resistance or flow? And the key to being able to separate the two is present. Because when you learn how to be present, when you're connected with yourself, when the busy mind isn't running the show, when you have some emotional maturity, it doesn't matter how the child is behaving. You have enough awareness. Again, this is the theory. You have enough awareness in that moment, to respond. Where's my choice coming from? And there are 3 types of parenting styles, and I'll come back to the triggers.
Yeah.
So the 3 contexts for parenting. Remember, context gives meaning to content.
Okay.
So one type of parenting style is authoritarian parenting. Which a lot of us probably experience. And the other is laissez-faire parenting. So if I go back to authoritarian, that's very much, it's about my agenda as the parent. I'm the authority here. You do what I say. These are the things I expect from you. And we've all had that experience. We've had an experience in schools and things like that, where the authority is trying to, if you think about power, the authority is trying to assert power over. Power over other, control over other. The other is the laissez-faire, is when there are no boundaries at all. And we've seen that pendulum swing with a lot of modern parenting, where the child just needs to be free, just wants to run in the woods. Now, the key is, children, particularly developmentally, they need boundaries. And so the laissez-faire parenting, where there's very little boundaries and it all becomes about the child. So authoritarian, it's all about the parent. Laissez-faire, it's all about the child. And developmentally, we know that that isn't healthy for the child. The child needs a level of boundaries. The child needs to feel safe, knowing the parent has got the situation covered. And the third type, which I recommend to most of my clients, is collaborative parenting. And collaboration is about, this little person and myself are in a relationship together. And certainly until they're an adult, highly functioning, I have a role in that relationship, but how do we collaborate? How do I meet their needs? How do I take responsibility for the way I show up? So one of the first parts to the puzzle is to notice, what's your style of parenting? And what's, your alignment with your partner, if you're both, both together in parenting, or even not together in parenting, what's our style here? Because with couples, I see that one parent, will want to be the authority, the good cop, bad cop, the mum and dad sort of thing, which again can confuse the child.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. And you were talking about, this projection of our stuff as parents. And I think I'd imagine a lot of what we experienced when we were in that sort of key 0 to 7-year-old phase of life, if it was an authoritarian approach, it's much more likely that we're probably going to copy that. And the same with laissez-faire, and the same with collaborative, I would assume. And I noticed with myself, I'm somewhere between authoritarian and collaborative. I think that there's somewhere between the two. I don't think it's often laissez-faire with me personally. And I also note, when I'm in that authoritarian, what comes up for me is, where did that come from? Almost have this out of body experience of seeing myself saying something, a stop, a no, a don't. And where did that come from? And it's probably the voice of one of my parents, and not just them, but other role models who would have been around. I'm a child of the 70s and early 80s, when that was kind of more of the way. So I think just for me, it's just recognizing when I'm in it, and that's why I asked about being in the moment, a moment of emotion, is spotting, how am I being, how am I showing up in that, and that person has helped me move from being a bit less 1 authoritarian to being a bit more 3 collaborative. Great distinction. And again, if you go back to our operating system, so each of us operate in the world, and 90 to 95% of the way we operate is our subconscious mind, our unconscious mind.
we use about 5 to 10% of our conscious mind. So what's happening each day when we wake up is our subconscious is driving everything. And what lives in our subconscious mind, the fundamental filters that we learned, particularly as children 0 to 7, we learn our subconscious. In 0 to 7, our subconscious is in theta brain when we talk about the different brain states. And theta is when we're just downloading, we're receiving the download. And so there's no cognitive ability. We're not filtering it through any frontal cortex, any reasoning. We're just living through the experience of our parents, our caregivers, our culture. And out of that, we start to download this whole belief system, this values set, our life experience, and the fundamental operating context, the fundamental operating belief that we download between the age of 0 to 7. It's not good or bad, says, I'm not good enough because I'm not valuable and lovable. And it's the fundamental filter from within which we give meaning to our external world unconsciously.
Wow. That just feels like just pause on that for a minute, a big knowledge bomb that you've just dropped in. And I've heard you talk about this a lot before, but I wanted to zero in on this a little bit more. So between these ages of 0 to 7, that's when this sense of not good enough, not valuable enough, not lovable is somehow imprinted on our beautiful little children. Not something we'd want to do as parents, but just happens. How does that happen?
And again, it's not good or bad. Remember, this is the human experience.
Okay.
And we'll talk in other episodes about the relative experience. So how it happens, again, if we think about the different brain waves, alpha, beta, gamma, theta, what we know through neuroscience now is that what's occurring effectively, the theta brain in all of us as adults, and in children, is the downloading system. So your software, you come into the world, you have this operating system, and the download that we're constantly getting 0 to 7, through our parents' behavior, through the cultural imprint, through playing games with other children and everything, forms this fundamental belief. And if you look at family dynamics, if you look at the whole journey from 0 to 7, and again, if we have time, happy to take you through the milestones of how this occurs. If it's useful, you'll start to see where this not good enough kicks in. Would it be useful?
I think so. Yeah. I appreciate not everyone listening will have kids of that age, but some will. And I think we'll talk about, if your children are older than have gone beyond the age of 7 when that's happening, and things you might better bring your attention to, your awareness to, and other things to do. But let's stick to this for a minute.
Yeah, great. And I really want to support parents that this isn't bad. You don't have to go into guilt or shame. Because having worked with many, many people, people can start to judge themselves. This is the human experience. This relative experience. And so what happens is, and this is every human being I've coached, every human being I've met, it's not based on extreme trauma. It's not based on neglect. It's just the human experience, this relative experience. So again, if we break it down, if you just think about the experience for human beings 0 to 7. So, and again, if I can ask you, Rich, to just share. So again, from your memory and also from your experience. So when a child is born, and particularly born in a hospital, were you born in a hospital, Rich?
I was, yes.
Yep. And I know the progression now of home births, water births, and everything is absolutely about minimizing this to some extent. What's your sense of what the first experience is for a baby being born in a hospital in the Western world?
It's light, bright, noisy, lots of people, white, everything's white probably. Think about the classic hospital scene, white and green. Sort of not chaos, but busyness going on. That would be my sense.
Yeah, exactly. Bright lights, loud noises. We've gone from this safe space of the womb suddenly into this relative experience of separateness. And what happens is it's suddenly our whole system, our nervous system, our emotional system, is met with this experience. And what happens is a part of us shuts down.
Wow.
We've got to shut down. It's like, well, what's going on here? I better learn this new game. And that's when we start to put on our masks. And I'll talk about the different masks, because we've got to keep ourselves safe. We don't have the cognitive ability to reason or logic our way through this. It's just, okay, welcome to the world. My generation, you got a smack on the bum as well, just to add to it. Welcome to the world. What does baby do?
Let's hear your voice.
Exactly.
Let's get that scream out of you. Yeah.
And the theory was that it would help the baby breathe. What we know now is that there's a breath in the umbilical cord. That's why, the umbilical cord isn't severed as quickly in a lot of more natural births, because there is a natural breath. There's a natural experience there. But my generation, smack on the bum, baby cries. Doctor's laughing. He's smiling. It's like, but the poor baby has this experience.
Right.
What happens then is that, again, as a generalization, typically baby will go home with mum, with caregivers, with parents. And the first few months, again, think about Rafa, your newborn. Baby cries. What do you do the first couple of months?
Well, you attend. Right. You try and stop baby crying.
Exactly. Baby cries, gets fed. Baby cries, gets warm. Baby cries, gets changed. Like those first couple of months, we're responding. We're responding until after a couple of months, baby cries, doorbells rings, dinner's burning, phone rings. What do we do?
Baby has to cry a bit longer.
Again, not good or bad, but we better put the fire out. It's more important to put the fire out with dinner burning. We know the baby's safe for another 5 minutes. But what do you think the baby's experience is, Rich?
Okay, so this has gone from every time I cried, I was attended to now I'm crying, no one's coming.
Exactly. And the baby's experience, again, precognition, energetically, this has got something to do with me. We're the most dependent species on the planet. Our whole survival depends on another human being. So what happens is, the baby, needs survival, and goes, I thought the gig was if I cried, people came. That's not working now. And that's when we put on the first cut of our masks. When we first arrive, there's a shutdown, but this is when we really put on the mask. And the masks are there to keep us safe.
Okay.
And if you look at family dynamics, so the first child might come out, and put on the mask of, well, I'll be the high achiever. Because if I'm the high achiever, I'm going to get the attention of my parents. The second one comes out and goes, well, I'll be the goody two shoes. That's going to work. I'll be that one. The third one comes out and goes, well, I better be the angry fucker here, because nothing else is going to get attention. And as little people, at 2, at 3, at 5, this is crucial. The masks are there to keep us safe. We have to get attention. The whole journey is attention. Our survival, requires another human being. What's interesting, though, is that for most of us, we forgot to take the masks off when we became adults.
I see. Okay.
And if you go to any family Christmas party or family gathering or celebration, your family of origin, most people arrive with the masks on. Oh, okay, great.
I'm laughing because I've literally just been at a really big family gathering and you see the roles that people played when they were 9, 10 being played out again. No, not good or bad, just being, just that's the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's a big part of it. That's a big part of the dynamic is, we still wear these masks. And that's why we get so triggered with our family of origin, with our parents, with our siblings.
Wow.
Because we're still playing that old game.
So, okay, so our entrance to the world creates this sense of not good enough, not valuable, not lovable. Again, it's not a good or bad comment. It just is. But we might be thinking, okay, or what can I do about that then, as a parent? Now, of whatever age child, they could be really young, they could be, about to fly the nest and become adults themselves. But we might be thinking as a parent, oh, what can I do?
Yeah. Well, the key link, just to close the loop, is when we develop these masks, essentially the message we're getting unconsciously from the world, is I'm not good enough, I'm not valuable and lovable. But one day I will be. I've just got to go and build my career, get a successful marriage, pay the mortgage off. Most of us are living, one day I'm going to be good enough. You watch. You watch. I've just got to do a few more things. And that's the setup. We're constantly thinking, one day I'm going to be good enough. One day I'm going to be valuable and lovable. And we're thinking it comes from the outside in. And so the good news is the not good enough isn't true. It's just a story we told ourselves to keep us safe. And so the first key thing, and this is the piece around freedom that we mentioned, is when you change the subconscious belief, when you change the context from I'm not good enough, I'm not valuable and lovable, to I'm okay, I am lovable and valuable. When you really embody that inside yourself, really believe that about yourself, the essence of who you are, it's so liberating. It's so freeing. Because you realize that old story, you can let go of. And when you do that, your parenting will shift. Your relationships will shift. And so fundamentally what we're doing there, and remember the way we change beliefs, the way we change these imprints, we do it at a mental level, at an emotional level, and an energetic level. So any of the listeners who've done any personal development work, whether it's your shadow work, whether it's healing, whether it's trauma, all we're doing is recalibrating those systems. And the fundamental one we want to recalibrate, the quickest way, because I see people who get stuck in therapy for years. And for some people that may be the case, but the quickest way, what I want to shift is this shift from not good enough, not loving ourselves and not valuing ourselves, to the opposite, to really valuing and loving ourselves. And that's a part of the hero's journey. And again, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
When you shift that, coming from the inside out, as I mentioned, if you, Rich, if you believe you're valuable and lovable, that you're okay just as you are, there's nothing lacking, there's nothing missing. It doesn't mean you don't want to grow and be the best version of yourself. But when you really embody that, and I know you've done a lot of work with that, how does it feel when you meet your beloved, when you meet your children? What's been the energetic shift for you?
I think I describe it as it's a calm, it's a calmness, because going in with that, I'm okay. It is energetic because and I know my sons, especially the older one, will pick up on that. When I'm in that angst triggered state of I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, something's happened which is proving that to me, he picks up on that. They are smart. Whatever age our kids are, they are super smart, very intuitive and very tuned in, especially obviously to their parents. So I know when I have that calm, that's when I get into that. I talked about that flow and sort of resistance state. I'm likely to be parenting from that position of collaborative, this is how I want to be, versus this is how I think I should be, because of something that's sitting with me from years ago. So I do notice that. And again, it comes back to that sort of in the moment parenting.
Yeah.
Which most
parents. And do you notice? Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Do you notice a sense of freedom in that?
Yes, because I think it's free. It's freedom. What is it? It's freedom. It's a freedom from judgment. I'm not going to be judged. I'm not judging myself. No one else is going to judge me. It's all good. That's the best way I can probably just describe that sense.
Yeah. And as we defined in the first episode, there's freedom from, and there's an innate state of freedom. So freedom from suffering is that construct, the not good enough, the inner critic, the judgment of yourself, the collective perception of what's happening, and also freedom from those triggers. And if I just dive back into the triggers, as to what occurs, and you mentioned the energetic exchange with children as well. So the way triggers work is that what occurs is, remember, the external world inherently is meaningless until I give it a meaning. It's just happening. The child is just being the child. Your wife is just being your wife. You're giving it a meaning, remember, 90 to 95% through your subconscious mind. So what occurs in a nanosecond, little Noah is just being Noah, 3-year-old. You and I could both be in the room and we'd have a totally different meaning we'd give it and experience. Yes. Through our filters, through our beliefs, through our values, and through the not good enough.
And crucially, just on that, it's the two people that are most likely to be in the room are probably the two parents who are giving a different meaning to how whatever is showing up. And it feels in that there's something. Could be a tension, could be a collaboration, could be however it comes across, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so what occurs is that when you're giving it a meaning, remember, when we look at the external world, there's only two things we ever see, Rich. It's the way we want it to be or the way we think it should be. And as soon as you go in and know it should be something different, that's when you're projecting your stuff. And normally when we go into the should, we want to control the external world. There are different behaviors. And when Noah doesn't look the way you think he should be, you'll get triggered. What comes up for you emotionally when you look at him, and he's behaving a certain way, and you think it should, inverted commas, be different? What's the feeling sometimes?
That could be a frustration. Or why? Haven't we talked about this already? I'd say that's quite a common emotion that would come up. And why is he not finishing his food? He must want to finish his food. It's according to me, it's lunchtime. Clearly, according to Noah, it's not.
And this isn't about setting boundaries with our children, yet it's noticing how we respond or react. So as soon as you go into that, you're reacting. You feel frustrated. You feel a sense of anger. Mild sense of anger. That's the trigger. Triggers are just emotional responses to the external world. And if we play this, Rich, if you don't mind, just play it out for yourself. And you've had a recent example. What's the story you're telling yourself? When you become conscious of it.
Yeah, it's I'm not a good dad. That's the story. If I can't get my son to behave in a certain way, that means I'm not a good dad. That's played out super fast.
Yeah. And if you're not a good dad, then you're not good enough.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm not a good dad. I'm not good enough. I'm not valuable and lovable. I should be better. The shoulds come in.
Yeah.
And for you, what's your response when you react? What do you attempt to do with the external world?
Oh, I'm trying to control it. I'm trying to get it into some kind of order that works for me. Okay.
Yeah.
Eat this food
tiring
now.
Is that?
Exhausting. Yeah, it is. It's and that's it. That's that resistance, and it's exhausting. It's not enjoyable. It's distracting. And and here's me. I've done a lot of work on myself, and I know it's a lifetime's work. And that's the reassuring thing. It's always there. But it's just, as he's talked about, it's bringing the awareness to it. I know what's happening here, and then I've got that choice. When I bring the awareness to it, I've got the choice.
Exactly, and the choice is responsibility. Am I going to respond to my emotions? Yeah. Am I going to react or respond? Am I going to take responsibility for my emotions first? This is your stuff. Again, not good or bad, but if you don't take responsibility and go, these are my emotions, and then the choice is resistance or flow. So as soon as you go into control, as soon as you go into projection, as soon as you go into the world should look a different way, you've gone into resistance. You're resisting the experience. There's no cheese down that tunnel. Yeah. And so the opportunity through the practices of presence, through the self-awareness, emotional awareness of your triggers, is to go, instead of reacting, I can respond. And when I respond, instead of resisting, I'm in flow. Get into that place of flow. Now, what that means is that Noah is just triggering a part of you that you haven't fully accepted, that you haven't fully loved. Our greatest teachers are our children, through the committed relationships we're in, our children and our beloved. Because fundamentally, if you think about the hero's journey to the Holy Grail, to our essence, a big part of the journey is to unconditionally love myself and accept myself as a man for who I am right now. And if there's parts of you, Rich, that you haven't fully loved, Noah's going to press that button. Think you got your stuff sorted, Dad? What about this? Me. And all they're doing is reminding you, that's that part I haven't fully accepted. There's my control stuff. There's my judgment. There's my resistance. And if you do your practice and get more present, you can start to see, they're my greatest teacher. If I'm really committed to my journey, my hero's journey, if I'm really committed to freedom from the mental constraints, freedom from my emotional limitations, freedom from my not good enough, then what a gift.
And I think in the experience, that's almost what makes it, the challenge comes from, there can be long periods of great flow, and we're in this non-triggering, just wonderful, I say, just flowing relationship, and then bang, a circumstance, a context arises. It can be in moments of maybe it's out of the home when you're in less control again of the environment, and something happens, and then boom, there it goes. And then it's okay. And what I talk to myself about is that I'm not back to square one. It's just another lesson. It's just another lesson coming. Where I create that space, and then so how should we respond to this one?
And for the listeners, one of the first keys for the listeners is to start to shrink your buttons.
Okay.
They press your buttons, they press your triggers. So it's starting to really, really notice, because some people are hyper vigilant. They're so reactive, particularly with that busy mind we've spoken about, and, if you think about, working, putting food on the table, busyness, all those things, we can live in this state. Our nervous system's in the state of fight, flight, freeze. And so we're meeting our children from that place, and our buttons, our triggers are huge. The kids can just do something so benign, and suddenly we're in this reactive state, wanting to try and control and create certainty. And the poor child's just going, "Sorry, Dad, I just changed channels. I didn't know." It's like
that was going to have that impact on you. So on this, this shrinking of triggers of the buttons, our hot buttons, which sounds like that'll be a lovely state to get to. What we're trying to do on the podcast is bring some practical methods, tools to listeners that can start to act in these areas if you so choose. So what would be your go-to to start to do that, to shrink those triggers?
And again, it's an inside out job. One of the side notes is, pick your battles. It's like, really, are we going to fight over the Weet-Bix again? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, if that's the battle you're picking, and that's the way to shrink your buttons. Just go, you know what? Like, obviously children need boundaries. They need a level of discipline from a collaborative place. But firstly, start to notice, I'm getting in a fight with a 3-year-old over the Weet-Bix. That's probably not the most resourceful use of your time and energy and parenting.
Exactly. And other cereals are available.
That's right. And interestingly, children know when they're hungry or not. Children know when they're cold or not. They can regulate things. We're just imposing again our expectations. It's 8 o'clock. You should eat breakfast. You're going to school, and the little fella's going, "But I'm not hungry." Now there's another thread to that. So one of the first things is to pick your battles when it comes to shrinking your triggers and moving from reaction to responding, moving from resistance to flow. Again, as we've discussed, if you think about the different systems in play, so our nervous system, the fight, flight, freeze, is very much because we're in overload. And our limbic brain, what happens is it doesn't know the difference between whether there's the saber-toothed tiger or whether there's a 3-year-old there. It'll go into that until we start to quieten it down. And so quietening your mental system, and really looking after your nervous system, which is obviously through all of the things we know: diet, exercise, nature, all of those sorts of things. Just simple things, just noticing, what are you doing for yourself in those spaces? These will start to slow things down and shrink your triggers. And then your mental state, that inner critic, they're not good enough. Again, talk a lot about presence, a lot about mindfulness, slowing that busy mind down. And then emotional, the ability to become self-aware, to be able to regulate your emotions. We talk about, emotions are just energy in motion. Inherently, they're not good or bad. And the more present you are, the more you can respond to your emotions, not react to them. And then our energetic system, again, which is informing all of it through the practices that I teach. You can get more present, you can get more in your body, embodied presence. So all we're doing is looking for that, and again, there's a map, and there are different milestones on the map. We've spoken a lot about what happens for the parent. And it's interesting if we just want to shift into what are the child's needs. And again, there's lots of great literature out there. There's some incredible parent teachers out there. If people want to investigate some of this, there's some.
I personally, just to jump in on that, I like Stephen Biddulph. He's written books around this, raising boys, obviously applicable to me, and he's also written a book on raising girls as well. So whatever gender your child, he's got something for you. So we'll put a link to that, for example, in the show notes. But yeah,
Vanessa Lapont, who's a Canadian, Steve Birdolt's an Australian. We'll put her details. She does a lot of great work around, again, parenting from the inside out.
Yeah, great.
We'll put Maggie Beer, who's another. She's done a lot of work with boys. Anyone who's got boys, there's some great stuff out there. What we're fundamentally, in the context of parenting, if you start to think of the relationship, the collaboration with the little one, and again, I'm talking a lot to the little one, given you've got two little ones, and having worked a lot with teenage boys, I've now got 4 adult children, and the nuances of teenage boys, teenage girls, and things like that. But if we come back to the fundamentals, what we know is the most powerful thing you can give children, particularly little children, is presence. Presence and eye contact. And having worked with a lot of fathers, it can be quite challenging for fathers because the infant, firstly, there's obviously usually a high dependency on mum, on breastfeeding, or being nurtured by mum. So a lot of dads can get a bit frustrated. It's like, well, if the infant wants to go back to mum, seems to be comforted by mum, and there is a biology there, obviously. The other thing is a lot of fathers have the story that when the infant's developed a personality, when the infant is walking, talking, then I can build a different relationship. And obviously that there is some truth to that. Yet my support for parents, and particularly the dads who are listening, is that infant is taking in everything. And the studies around safe attachment is the most powerful thing is presence and eye contact. It's the being, not necessarily the doing. And so it's such a beautiful gift as a parent and as a father, if you can cultivate the ability to be present, to be with the little one. And you mentioned before, you know this for yourself.
And I was just going to say, if we talked about, this is definitely for you if you're a parent, but I also said if you're a future parent, and I would say if you are an expectant father right now, my greatest wish for you is to get as much time off whatever your work is when you have your newborn baby, because exactly to what you were saying, Bodhi, it's you have a major role to play, even though that small child at that age is totally dependent on the mother in most circumstances, but you have a huge role to play. And I really, it saddens me greatly when dads they have the mandatory in the UK, certainly 2 weeks off work, then back in to the physical office or the home office. But that be around as much as you can. That presence, that eye contact, that time that you have is foundational. Now I have walked the talk in this area and took a lot of time off from what I do to spend time with both my the boys when they were tiny. So that's a wish to anyone listening. In that sort of state.
And you mentioned be around, which is the truth. Be around. It's the being state with the infant. And obviously, supporting your partner, that's another whole conversation. So if we look at the needs of the child, fundamentally, particularly that formative years, that presence creates the safe attachment. There's a lot of studies around attachment theory, a lot of different parenting styles, yet fundamentally what we know is, because what's happening, and you mentioned it with Noah, who's 3, is energetically, and as you know, I do a lot of work with energy. What happens is that in each interaction, we're entraining each other energetically. And so entrainment, you're a musician, I'm a musician, just a campfire musician. Yet what happens in drum circles, which, you and I have both been in, the lead drummer is entraining the group. And what happens is when people let go after a certain period of time, everybody's in the same beat. And that's an energetic experience more than a thinking experience. Yeah, when we talk about flow, we talk about presence. You know the difference between you're thinking how to drum or you're drumming.
Oh yeah.
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 And so that's what's happening energetically with the child. Yeah, we're exchanging energy all the time. So when you're present and calm and connected to yourself, the child feels present, calm, connected, and safe.
Yeah.
They pick up the vibration, they pick up the energy. Now, as infants, they're picking it up, and safe attachment is what they're looking for. Yeah, as you know, that sense of safety. And then, as you say, Noah, as a 3-year-old, he knows how to press your buttons. He knows when you're not present. He knows when you're distracted energetically. It's not cognitive.
Yeah.
It's just energetically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, again, these practices that I teach are very much applicable in many different aspects of your life. Yet, from a parenting point of view, presence, the ability to be present, with your children. I've recently ran a 9-month course, as you know, for leaders, business leaders around the globe. And there were, we cover many different things. Yet one of the consistent feedbacks from the participants is, I've never been more present with my children since doing that course with you. Yeah. And you know that for yourself.
Yeah. And knowing those guys on that program, and they've got, most of them got children older than mine, but it's consistent across the piece that level of presence makes a difference, whatever the age of child and however long you've been parenting for. Well, Bodhi, I know we could talk more and more on this, but we're trying to create these digestible containers of episodes. So we're going to wind things down now. But again, thanks for sharing your incredible wisdom on a huge subject area, and I'm sure there'll be more questions that come in. We may well go again on this subject if there's a lot of intrigue and curiosity. I mean, we may come back to it. But thank you for your guidance, and I feel I've had a one-to-one coaching session on my parenting, which I'm gonna take immediately and integrate. That being the key. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And to the listeners, I'd love, if there's feedback, I'd love to do a similar session on teenagers. Having worked a lot with teenagers, teenage boys, teenage girls, because we didn't dive deeply into that. But if that's of interest, please send some questions, post some things, because we could easily cover that as well.
I am sure that's going to be a big area of interest. So we'll come back to that. Parenting teenagers. Thank you, Bodhi.
Yeah, fantastic.
See you soon.
Thank you, Rich. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.